Hey guys, it's Chris here, and time for this week's creative class. We're going to create, or I'm going to create, and hopefully you will too, a scrapbooking layout featuring the lovely and beautiful collection. So I love the scale of the paper for this collection, and it really lends itself very well to a scrapbooking layout. So I'm going to actually watercolor today for the floral images on the layout, but I'm going to show you lots of different alternative ways you could color your images. But I'm going to do that at the end. So I will assemble the layout and then we'll work on the details of the layout. But I'm going to show it to you first, and then we can get started. Okay, I might have to adjust my camera at some point, but like I said, we're going to take a look at the layout. I'm going to walk you through the details and the products that I used. Everything is in your Google Drive. There's photographs. I'm actually going to create it today with different paper in this main section. So I'm going to watercolor my images just slightly different. So you will end up with photos of two versions. They'll obviously be very similar, just the floral combination will be slightly different. Sorry, one second. Sorry about that. Hopefully I am okay now. So if you've not seen the paper from this collection, right, the lovely and beautiful DSP has like lots of pieces that have large floral images. And so, like I said, it lended itself really well to a scrapbooking layout. So here we'll start by just looking at the layout very quickly. Oh, I've backed off maybe just enough. There we go. Okay, so, and I'm here in the middle of winter, and so this like kind of is just like a breath of fresh air for me right now, because I would love to actually be seeing these in real life right now, the flowers. The other thing is I did not add a title to this layout. Because I think I'm going to add it to my daughter's wedding album, and I didn't know if that would be necessarily applicable for everybody. But on the stamp sets that I used, so I did use two bundles. So the Beautifully Celebrated and Simply Beautiful. But on this one, there's a couple of really good stamp titles that you could use, and obviously you could use anything, and not every layout obviously needs like a title also. So that's why I did not put a title on this layout. And there's like, you could put it here, you could put it here, you could put it down the bottom. There's lots of different areas you could use it. And I wanted to create like another really usable sketch for you that obviously could be adapted to any collection. And I really feel that this sketch kind of does that for you. So the paper, obviously I used these two collections. We're going to do watercoloring on watercolor paper. So I do like the Fluid 100 paper, so that's what I use. And I have done gold embossing because I really felt that it brought up the paper. So the paper has gold on it. It is embossed in gold. It's beautiful in real life. And I like watercoloring. So that is one of the options. So you can create them like this, like I'm going to do at the end. Like I said, I'm going to quickly assemble the layout and then we'll get to the technique portion. But I just wanted to show you a couple of different options. So I heat emboss all my images with gold embossing powder. Like I said, I wanted to play up the pattern paper as much as possible because I think it is stunning. But also a fun technique is your embossing doesn't necessarily have to be with gold. It could also be with black, um, because I wanted it embossed so that there would be no worries that any of my ink would run as I played with a lot of water. I really like to watercolor with re-inkers versus like the ink off my ink pad. And so because that's really concentrated color, I have a tendency to play with more water, right? But you can actually do it with just Memento ink, right? So I did watercolor some of the images. This is also on watercolor paper, but it's just stamped with Memento, right? And you get that fun, messy look. So like this is the same image, but you get a different look. So with the Memento, I thought it brought in more of like, it highlighted the black matting. So it kind of depends on what you want, the look you want, because that is actually like, it's completely different, right, than this one. This is like the quiet, I think it's quieter. It blends into the paper more, right? But I did do all of the images so you can see the difference, right? The other thing is you can color these images with blends, and that gives you another look. I will at the end color one of the flowers with blends, and you'll see the difference. I'll put it up against what we watercolor today. Then the other thing is there is a different set of floral dies in this collection. They are these open dies, and I'm going to just add ink with a blending brush on them. And you could use these instead if like, and you could obviously cut them out of cardstock. It doesn't have to be blended. That's just another option. And you could swap these out. There's a small one and a large one. This is the small one. I just pulled it out of the pile of dies that I cut, and I'll show you it ink blended. So you have like so many different options for recreating in these cluster images. This is like your fun part to play with, and you could get different looks depending on what you're scrapbooking, how you want your finished layout to be. Okay, and then also, like I said, I wanted to create a really usable sketch that if you just wanted to pull from your stash, because you have tons of paper in your stash, right? The fun thing is I really love the contrast of the subtles with the really bright pops of Calypso Coral and then the black matting. Okay, so like I said, we're going to create the layout first. So if that's all you want to watch, you're more than welcome to. And then at the end, I will create the clusters, like I'll watercolor the clusters that will add to the layout. Okay, so before I start, I thought I would show you the different patterns that I picked. So I'm going to keep my stamp images the same. So I did stamp and emboss in gold and heat set these. And like I said, I did them all on watercolor paper because I do have a tendency to use a lot of water. And so I like that. But like I said, there's lots of different ways you could do it. So for the main piece here, I'm going to highlight a different piece of paper from the paper pack. And so this one doesn't have the gold outlines, but it does have the gold details, and the floral images are slightly different color combination. There's no Calypso Coral in this layout the way I'm creating it. So I might not do Calypso Coral on my flowers the same way I have done on this one. Then I have the pulled the old olive in for my Calypso Coral pieces. These pieces I actually kept the same, And we're just gonna, they're just little strips that are like 1/2 inch by 4, and I'm just gonna rip them to look like washi tape because they already coordinate. And then I am going to use this same paper, which on the back side also has like this beautiful floral, which would look stunning on the layout too. So that's how I'm switching the papers, just so you can see beforehand. So at the top, I did add stamping, and the stamp came from the Beautifully Celebrated stamp set. And so I'm going to stamp across the top of both the layouts at approximately 1.5 inches. So I am actually going to give myself a line, a pencil line, because I'm going to do my stamping first. And I'm going to drop my pencil line just 1/8 of an inch below that, and just because then I don't have to erase it, to be super honest with you. You could do it right at the 1.5 inch mark, but you can see here, this is just slightly lower. So I know if I'm stamping over that line, it's like I will vary the stamp, right? And I'll still be covering up parts of it, but I don't have to necessarily erase it. And you could do this, right, with any kind of like distressed or decorative stamp. This is just like little dashes and like a little 4-leaf petal. I'm just going to put these back here and move this out of the way. And I'm going to grab fresh freesia. And that's what I did on the original, and it plays in really quite nicely with this paper pack, this paper selection also. And I think that you could make it fit into each other, but I want it to look more like random, not like a solid stamped border. I just think part of it is it's more forgiving. And it's just like a little detail. You could also totally leave this off if you wanted to. Okay, so that's one done. You could also add a little bit of ink blending if you wanted along that line to kind of ground this a little bit if you wanted. I felt that that border strip across the top kind of grounded it more than enough for me, but just a different option. You could also add like some ink blending across the top of the layout. I think would be super pretty. Okay. Whoa. So I'll just quickly build my left-hand page first, and I'm going to build it just from the bottom up. it would also be pretty, like, so I used more of like the B-sides, right, for this piece, but you could also reverse it, right, and use the B-side in the big space and the floral details in the smaller spaces if like that's just would give you a completely different look also. Just trying to decide if there's more of a direction to my paper. All the measurements are obviously on your sketch and everything is already uploaded into the Google Drive, except for the photographs of this one, which will be in there shortly. Okay, and then I'll just double check. But see, now I'm going to cover up my pencil line. My stamping still is above that line, so I don't need to really worry about erasing it. But like I said, you are more than welcome to if you wanted to. I really love this piece too. This would be really pretty as like the background in this big piece. Because all the little gold centers are really pretty there. And I think this piece would kind of lend itself to that open die really quite nicely. As like the cluster pieces. So I can actually add my photo spots on here, and I didn't center that properly, so we're going to fix that. There we go. So in the middle, I have a 6x4 and then two 4x3s on either side. Okay, so we have our left-hand page together without the embellishments on it yet. Here's our pieces for our right page. So again, I will build it from the bottom up. Okay, so now I have my column for my photographs. So I have two 3x3s, one 4x3, and one 4x6. Okay, and then, like I said, I have these pieces of the DSP. For each of the clusters, I have one, and I just ripped the edges on each of them. So we have one for here, one for here, and then one for the left-hand side. Okay, so I'm going to move my stuff out of my way and get my water ready, and I will do my watercoloring. Okay, so again, I just wanted to show you the difference between the paper that is my original and this one. So for this one, I'll go over what I used and where, because I will obviously do a slight variation. So all the leaves I did Old Olive. This one is Peach Pie, Calypso Coral, Fresh Freesia. This is Calypso Coral, Fresh Freesia. Obviously, all the greenery is Old Olive. This is Peach Pie. And so is this. With the greenery is Old Olive, and then little touches of Calypso Coral. So my second set for this layout, I'm going to do a little bit more subdued. So I'll play more in the Petal Pink, the Fresh Freesia. I could actually even add in Daffodil Delight, but I won't. So then a few tips here. So I do, like I said, prefer to watercolor, like especially a large image, right? So I have a large image for each side. I'll break them up too in a second. But I always do like a test of what the re-inker will look like on my watercolor paper. Obviously, if you want to use ink, it's absolutely up to you. Like I said, I just like a little bit more of the concentration of re-inkers. So you can see here, right? I swatched them and then I wrote what I used underneath. I also have this tray here that I have my re-inker in because that's how I'm going to use it. If you want ink pads, right, don't you don't need this, and even if you have, you can just use blocks. But what I'm going to tell you is when you look at these here, I can see like a slight difference in them, but I can't actually tell the difference between them very well. So I've laid them in my trays in the same order that they're swatched. So this is Old Olive, this is Fresh Fuchsia, this is Petal Pink, this is Calypso Coral, and this is Peach Pie. I also have my re-inkers sitting in front of me in the same order. So if I was doing this with my stamp pads, which you totally could, right? And I do, I would have Calypso Coral sitting in the same order. Like I would do my ink pads in the same order. That way I just have left less of a tendency to put my brush in the wrong color. Also, I will organize my images correctly for the pages. And then before I start watercoloring, I have 2 sizes of brushes. It doesn't matter if you like one, and you don't have to have like a water painter. You could actually use just brushes. And then I keep my water separate versus pouring it into my re-inkers. I want a little bit more control. And I always have like a paper towel so I can either take away water or add water, any of those fun things. So I'm just going to pause and I'm going to separate my images in the right order, so for the right pages, and then I'll start watercolor. Okay, so these are my left-hand page, these are my right-hand page in the bottom, and then this is up in the corner. So like I said, I'm going to do a slightly different color combination, but I'm going to try and leave my original over here so you can see. So I think that I'm going to do, so first I want to pick my 2 largest images. So all my greenery, like I said, will be Old Olive again. But I want to focus on these 2 first. So I'm going to do 1 Petal Pink and 1 Fresh Fuchsia. And so like I said, I do have a wider brush and a skinnier brush. Okay. And I'm actually going to start by just adding some water to my image to kind of saturate my paper and get it ready to take the medium. So like I said, I think I'm going to do 1 Fresh Fuchsia. So I'm going to actually dip in the Fresh Fuchsia. I'm going to add some here and play with it a little bit. I want it watered down. I don't want it as concentrated, right? Because when you're playing in re-inkers, obviously it is more concentrated. So I'm just tapping it down and letting the water pull the color out, right? I want that washed out, not perfect kind of feeling. So I'm literally just tapping the color in. If I feel it needs a little more pigment, I'll go back, right? Because I'm also getting towards my outside, so it's going to be a little bit darker. You can also play with the amount of water on your image too, right? So as it dries, I'll go in and add more water. adding more dark, and I'm actually, I quite like the little bits of white and not having the flower perfect, because also, right, like flowers in nature aren't perfect. So I'm just watching though, because my paper is starting to dry out, right? And this is too concentrated for me, so I'm going to add some water and move it around. So it works both ways, right? You can add and take away. So this is kind of concentrated, so I can pull out some of that color just with water. Okay, so I'm actually going to stop right now and let this dry to decide before I want to add more color inside. Okay, so same thing. Now I'm going to make sure, and I'm using the larger brush because we're playing with the larger floral image. So like I said, this one I think I'm going to do petal pink. So I'm just adding some water to make my paper wet, but I also don't want it like so saturated that the second I touch something down, it's just going to go wick all the way through my watercolors. Okay, so remember, I have my little cheat sheet up here, so I know this is Old Olive, this is Fresh Fuchsia, and this is Petal Pink. So I can dip in here and spread a little bit out. You can also splatter with your watercolor to add like a little bit of distressing if you want. The reason that I swatched too is because, like, for this is called Petal Pink, but it's obviously in the re-inker got quite a bit of orange in it. But I know that, right, because I have it swatched. Seem to have something here. There we go. I can feel my watercolor paper is drying up, so I'm going to add a little bit more water to be able to play. So this one, I actually don't think I'm going to add anything more in. So there's my petal pink one. And I could even pull up some color if I think it's too much. I'm going to set this to the side to dry. we'll play with a couple of the leaves. I did do all the leaves the same, like I said, with Old Olive, just adding some lights and darks into them. So I'll just am I concentrating my darkness in certain points as it dries, right? You get that natural variation in color that you would see in nature. So I'm actually just going to quickly do all my old olive pieces at the same time. And I'm not trying to make them look the same, right? That's, I think, part of my favorite part is they all look just slightly different. I'm just trying to concentrate any dark parts where I feel the leaves would be darker. So because these are very small, I don't know if you noticed, but I didn't lay down water first because I almost feel like just painting them on that small area is the best. But like here, I might lay in a little bit of water because I don't want it to get out of control on me because we're not working with a very big space, right? So I don't want a ton of water moving around. I want to be more in control of where I'm putting down my ink and my lights and my darks, right? Versus this one is a little bit bigger, so I will put down a little bit of water first, right? Versus this one, I would do more. It's the same as the floral images, right? Like this one, I would lay more water on because the image is bigger and I want more playtime with the ink. If you think it's too dark, you can add water in, or you can also pull up some of the ink, right? So let's say I don't like how dark this got. I want to pull up a little bit of the water. I mean, the color. I can pull out some of that dark. And then I think, well, maybe I got it too light. I can always go back and lay in a little bit more color. Okay, so then with the little florals, I think we will play, and I'm going to do one over on this side in the fresh freesia, right? Because I have the petal pink. Still drawing. But so I'll do one fresh freesia. Because I just kind of want to make sure like all the colors are represented on both sides, right? So again, I can't really tell what my colors are, but I know because I swatched that this is my purple. And I'm going to make this one for my left-hand side. Oh, maybe I should do peach pie because we haven't done one of those yet. Okay, and if I feel like it's gotten too dark, I'm actually going to give it a second to dry out because I don't think it is too dark. But this one I want to do kind of light, right? So I think we will do some of the petal pink. And so here, right, because it's such a small area and my watercolor is still kind of wet, I'm actually not going to add watercolor to that part of the surface. I'm just painting in lightly because I can always go back and add, right? And then, so because we haven't done one, I was going to do a Calypso Coral, but I don't know that I really want a Calypso Coral on with the color combination. So we're going to actually just do, we'll add another I'll do petal pink and we'll just dot our Calypso Coral into this. And I just really just dotted. Just trying to decide here still. Maybe we'll just do peach pie. And I think that petal pink and peach pie would be two examples of if I wanted to lighten it up even more, then I would use my ink pads versus my reinkers. But I'm okay with the strong color coming in my clusters. Okay, so this is kind of dry. So if I want to go back in and add a little bit of more darkness around the middle of my flower, I can. Or where I think some darker spots might be. Okay, so I'm just going to move these to the side and I'm going to pull in the other flowers. Okay, so while those dry for a couple of seconds, more minutes, I thought I would show you, right, the other ways you could do this. So, like I said, you can stamp them in black, memento, and watercolor them. Just know that you will get, depending on how much water you play with, you will get a little bit of running, but you could emboss them in white. That's also a really neat look, because then you're kind of doing like no line watercoloring, right? Or there is black embossing powder too, right? Or you can use your blends to color them. So this is the large floral image, obviously, and I just grabbed fresh freesia, and I'll lay in a little bit of dark. I might not normally use the bullet tip, but apparently I picked a color that I have used a lot of. So the brush tip doesn't seem to have very much ink in it. So there's just a little bit of dark inlaid. And I'll pull it out with my light. Same thing too, I'll leave, just because I think that the image so much, I don't think it necessarily needs to be colored like perfectly, right? Like you want some white spaces, because flowers have those too, right? So I'll just pull out some of the darks. So this is totally another option for using in your clusters, right? Just using the coordinating blends and coloring your images. And because I don't have a lot of dark in here, I might work on building up my color a little bit more than normal. Careful trying not to oversaturate my paper, so I will at certain points like leave it so that it has a chance to dry if I'm worried about getting, because the alcohol does make your paper like damp, right? So you do want to be careful not to oversaturate it. This is just like normal cardstock. This isn't watercolor paper, so it can't take as much liquid. So, and your alcohol does keep reacting, right? So that is another option, right? It gives you a different look than the watercolor paper. So that's an option, right? You could also do that. Or like I said, you do have these other dyes in here. And even just like I said, you could use cardstock, but you could also just use white and add a little bit of color to it. So this is Calypso Coral because I thought this is going to give you the most dramatic difference, right? So I could add some color to my white. I could even add more than one color too, right? I could go in with like lighter colors and then darker centers, right? Just by doing a little bit of ink blending. You could also mix and match. Just because I didn't mix and match on this layout doesn't mean that you can't just mix and match them. So, just going to wipe this because I'm going to bring back in my layout in a second and we'll finish assembling the clusters. So I could glue these together. I just want to like offset them slightly, and they do build quite nicely on each other. So I'll just hold it for a second. You could also splatter them. That would be really pretty. So, and then I would just give the floral a little bit of life and then add something to the center. So the embellishments that I did pick for decorating were the pearlized faceted circles. And so these also would make a really pretty center, right, to your floral images. So like I said, I think I've given you lots of different techniques and tips and tricks to use the collection for your layout. There we go. So that, like I said, there's big, larger florals and smaller, right? So you could use these to create, and then there's leaves, right? So you could use these in place if you didn't want to do the watercolor, if you wanted something a little bit simpler. Like you could also, right, like like I said, create them with just cardstock. Okay, so I'm going to check my watercolor and we'll see if they're dry and ready to add to my layout. Okay, I think my pieces are dry enough, so we're going to start assembling the clusters here. So I'll start with my left-hand page, and right, this is the different color combination. So I'm going to set in my fresh fuchsia flower, and I did pop this up. Then I have the flowers, the leaves. I have a single leaf over here. I have our little bud for up here. And then on dimensionals too, I have this piece. Then we're going to add our faux washi tape. But so I'll just start adhering and tucking the pieces in. So when I'm happy with my placement, right? So this piece I have bridged over part of something that already has dimension on it. So this I will add just plain adhesive to. And then dimension at this end. Okay, and then I have my linen thread already on my dots. Okay, and on this one I use the Calypso Coral color of the gems. I think I'm going to use the white ones on here. So there we go. This is the original versus our new version. And then for my right hand page, I'll start up here maybe. So this is just flat. And I just kind of used it as an anchor point for all of the clusters. And I just repeated it in all 3 spots, right? This package of glue dots is crazy sticky. Okay, and same thing, right? I'll finish with the embellishments. Okay, and then our second lower cluster. I'm not going to tap this down until I get my other pieces under for spacing. Actually, pretty good, I think. This too is bridging something that's got dimension. So dimension on that side. And just adhesive across the rest. Add in my twine in. And my sparkly embellishments. There we go. We are all finished. So I'll bring the 2 pages in so you can see them again side by side. So here is the original, right? The little bit brighter with the Calypso coral. And then here's the more subdued version, I would say, with like the more old olive. Still both really very pretty in real life, and I think you could use the layout, as I said, for so many different things. So that's what I've got for you guys today. So your sketch is in the Google Drive. Your inspiration sheet is in the Google Drive. This will be in the February guide section, as well as in the scrapbooking workshop, scrapbooking layout album, and let me just think of anything else. The inspiration sheet will also be in the file section, in case you can't find it in any of the other spots. And I hope you guys all have an awesome day. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Just add them in the comments to whichever video you're watching, and I will come back and address them as soon as possible. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.